Look at that. That's what we're making in this easy weeknight meal. It's a delicious, delicious meal. Well, hello. Welcome to my kitchen. Hey, today I'm going to be making sausage gravy and biscuits. Good stuff. I love sausage gravy, and that's where we take that breakfast sausage and cook it up as crumbles, and then we make a beautiful pan sauce around that, and it's kind of like a cream gravy, but I call it a country gravy, and it's very, very good. We're also going to be doing some biscuits, an easy biscuit recipe, but delicious. And folks, no sense in waiting, so come on over this way and let's get started. Let's look at these ingredients and get busy making some delicious food. I do want to mention one thing though. Please look right underneath this in that description box. You're going to see the links to my website and also to my Patreon, to my Wisio. That's some great ways. If you want to help out with Texas Cooking Today, you can do so. Also, you're going to find my recipes at my website, which is S.A.Trotter.com. That link is right there also. Please take a look at that, subscribe, click that like button if you enjoy this video, and please drop some comments. Now let's get started cooking. Come on over. Now, sausage gravy with biscuits, pretty easy stuff to do, folks. We need a good sausage, so I have a breakfast sausage here. You choose whatever your favorite is, and that's the best one to go with for you. I also have a little bit of flour, some salt, seasoned pepper, and some heavy whipping cream. Now and that's going to be for our sausage gravy. For the biscuits over here, I've got some flour, milk. You can also use half and half for this. I have some lard, butter, baking powder, and salt. A very simple, basic biscuit recipe, not hard to do, and flat delicious. Now folks, this isn't tough, but we need to start with the biscuits because that's really where I think the majority of the prep work is here. Making the gravy, the sausage gravy, is an easy thing to do. Let's get going. Alrighty, let's get started with our biscuit dough. I did a little rearranging here, as you've seen. Get that flour in there. I've got some salt right here. Ooh, looky there. And baking powder. Now, when you get something like that in there, you kind of want to distribute it around just a little bit. So just go ahead and turn it. This is a really neat way for you to also do an easy weeknight meal. And that's actually what I'm doing right here. I'm making one of my weeknight meals. So you're included. It's an easy one. Now, I'll say this, when you're cutting fat or anything into flour for the purpose of, let's say, making biscuits or whatever, then what you're looking for is to get the butter broken into small pieces within all of that flour, okay? When you do that, it's going to cause layers to form in your biscuits. So I don't want to like melt butter into it. I'm looking for chunks of butter about the size of a pea, or maybe a little larger to the size of a peanut. And those little clumps of fat and butter are going to lay out in between the dough that we make around it. And it forms little thin layers that puff up, similar to the way a puff pastry works, where we take a dough and we fold butter into it over and over. We're going to do something similar here. All right, now this is our lard. Now you might be wondering why I use lard and butter. For very good reason. Ladies and gentlemen, butter gives biscuits a delicious flavor, it really does. But it doesn't make for the most flaky biscuits. Lard does make for the most flaky biscuits. So I find a nice little combination of the two is a neat way to go. I'm using a trick little item here, as you see. This is referred to as a pastry blender, okay, is what it's called. It allows us to cut fats into our pastries, okay? That's pretty much its sole purpose. And what I'm doing is I'm literally cutting the pieces smaller with the tines of this. Okay. Now you can get your hand down in there and just break up your fats that way. That works. However, it needs to be said, I started with cold fat, cold butter and cold fat. They were both good and hard, so they give me nice little pieces. You don't want your fats getting too warm, because then they're going to start melting into the flour and you don't get that layering effect. You get a nice flavor, but it's more of a doughy bread effect than a layered flaky biscuit. Okay? There we go. So now, let's take a look at this. I think I have what I'm looking for. We look down in here, we can see pieces. There's a piece of butter. It's a little larger than what I need, but it's not bad. All right, and this is going to work fine, okay? So, I can say one thing. Don't overwork it. It's better you underwork it than overwork it, all right? When it comes to biscuits, they kind of thrive on neglect. Now that we have the fats worked in there, I'm going to use my same pastry blender and start working some of that milk in. Now, you can use half and half the same way that you would use milk in this location. I find cream is a bit too heavy and makes the biscuits kind of not stand up the way they want to. I'm using half and half right now, and it'll end up working out, but milk honestly works best for this. And the difference is it's just the fat content, really, when you get right down to it. That fat content affects the texture of the dough of the biscuit. Okay, in just a moment I'm going to have to reach my hands down in here and get them nice and messy. So what I'll do when I do that is just to put some flour on them and go at it. When it comes time to handle, take off jewelry, get some flour in the hand. All right. It just helps keep things from sticking as much. You'll probably still get a little bit, but you know what? Nothing bad. So what I'm doing is just working it around to try to pick up the last of what was in that bowl. Nothing more. Okay. Here we are. All right, now at this point where I've got kind of a really crumbly mess right here, and it doesn't look like anything's going to happen with it real well, this is really the condition I'm needing. This is what makes for good biscuits, okay? So I'm going to take this, I'm going to just gently work it out. It doesn't have to be a big, doesn't have to be spread out really big. Now, if you want, you can use a roller for this. Works fine. And I'm about to break out another tool of mine that I like to use, and that is my pastry knife. Now, once you're working with something like this, go ahead and don't be afraid of using a little extra flour. So, pastry knife. Now, how does that come in handy? So what I'm going to be doing is using this quite a bit tonight. We'll fold this, all right. Let's just chop it again. All right, fold it over like so. I know it's a little bit weird shaped right now, but this is similar to what you do when you're making puff pastry. You see, if I was doing, let's say, a puff pastry, I'd make a white bread recipe first, and then I'll put butter right here, and I'd fold it over on that butter and press it down, and fold it again and press it down and roll it out, and then do that over and over until finally I have multiple layers. We usually take it up to 128 layers. All right, now, go again with this. Let's do that again. Now what we're doing here is just basically kind of a layering system. This gives us some nice, even, smooth layers and works out really well. There we go. If you notice, I'm not stacking it even either, because I want it to all be its own unique, uniform self. Okay. Okay, now let's do this one more time to give us some good layers. Here we are. Isn't that incredible? The way we're doing that. And here's the thing. You're building layers right now. See here? Look at this. See how that comes apart in kind of this weird layered pattern? And that's exactly what's going on. So we've got these layers of butter and dough working up into something that'll get nice and flaky and soft for us. So now it's about making this thin enough. And then we cut our biscuits and get them on a baking sheet to bake them up. So my dough, how thick do I want my dough? Well, frankly, folks, when you're making biscuits, you want your dough about 3/4 of an inch thick. Or figure this, roughly the thickness of your fingers and where they join the knuckles there, roughly somewhere in there. And what I have here looks like around 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Now here's the other thing. What shape do you cut these? Do you have to make little rounds? No, you can cut little squares. And today, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut little squares. Now I want to square off the edges just a little bit to smooth them up. But beyond that, yeah, we're going to cut squares. Now this that I'm cutting off the edge, yeah, I'm going to use it. You bet. I'll make a little biscuit with it. Okay. Nothing perfect. How's that for neat? Just split it right down the middle. And I'm doing this just because I wanted to come up with an easier way to do biscuits and to have less waste after cutting the primary biscuits. Because you know, when you do rounds, you got a lot of extra stuff that comes off of it. And even though we did cut around these, it's nowhere nearly as much. Now, I've got these guys, they're ready to get picked up and put directly onto a baking sheet. All right, the biscuits are made. We got them cut out, sitting right here. It's time to make our sausage gravy also. Now I'm preheating the oven right now, and it needs to preheat to 450 degrees. When I bake my biscuits, they're gonna be, about 10 to 15 minutes in the cook. They can set aside and cool for a little bit once they come out of the oven. So there's really no rush right here. All right, so what I'm gonna be doing is getting the sausage from its casing into this, and I got a neat trick for that. So it's kind of weird, but it works. So come over and let me show you this to you. If I'm going to make sausage gravy, I start with one of these chubs of sausage, and they always got these little clips on the end of them. So what I'm going to do is just take a pair of scissors. I'm going to snip the clip right there. You can do this with a knife also. But just take that thing right off of there, okay? There we go. It's out of my way. Now the sausage, to get it out of there easy, grab the other clip, all right? Just like this, just pinch it and start twisting. And no, it doesn't take that long to do this. Just keep twisting. Isn't that convenient? Watch it come out of the casing, and look what's up in here. Nothing, it's twisted that tight. Isn't that cool? So one time I was just frustrated and couldn't figure out how to get the sausage out of the casing, and I started twisting like that, and I think I was like about in my teens when I came up with that idea. But it has worked for me ever since. Nice and clean too. All right, so sausage out of the casing, biscuits are ready, oven is at 450 degrees, so in they go. Now this, get it turned on also. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes and let it go. Now folks, this right here, as it's cooking, I'm just going to stir it and break it apart and let it crumble. I also want a little bit of sticking in the pan, all right? Now what I'm looking for is the kind of sticking, not where the sausage is sticking to the pan, but where we're getting some caramelization going on. And that's the whole idea here. Now if you feel you need a little oil, you can do that. A lot of sausage, a lot of patty sausage is already got enough fat in it, okay? Now I'm just going to put a little lube in the bottom of my pan. There we go. I'm just breaking it apart, nothing more. Doesn't have to be fancy or pretty. What we're looking for is just sausage crumbles. They can be big and they can be small. However you would like the crumbles in your sausage gravy, you make them that way, okay? All right, now there's a little trick, to breaking up the sausage I'll mention to you. When it's starting to get cooked, you can lift it up on top of itself like that, build a thick bed, and then just go to chopping it through. And it works really, really well. And so you will know the temperature I'm running this at right now is a medium heat, or medium to medium high. That's what you're looking for. And again, we're looking for good browning and to get a little buildup in that pan. All right, let's take a look at that. Oh, now you see there in the bottom, that's how we're getting some browning going on. Now, the only way you get that is just to leave the meat alone. Okay, give it one stir. All right, and then just let it sit and cook, okay? Don't keep stirring it. If you do, it's more like a stir fry and you never get that deep caramelization going on. You want that nice browning happening. All right, let's take a look at these little gems. Oh, now those look just downright gorgeous. Whew. Now, this is about to finish up. We're about to make that gravy. In just a few minutes, we're gonna have a whole meal set up and ready to go. Now, our sausage has come to the point of being fully cooked. I'm going to reduce my temperature just a little bit. While I'm doing this, I'm just removing the sausage from the pan. You might be thinking, well, hold it. Isn't that supposed to be in the gravy? Well, yeah, it's going to be in the gravy. In just a little bit. All those little bits are going to be down in there. They're going to be wonderful. Now, my pan right here. Sometimes you're going to have a lot of grease left in here, like I said, depending on your sausage. Sometimes not. If not, how about let's start with a little bit of butter here. And I want to also add in just a little bit of olive oil. You can do yours however you like. But I love the flavor of butter, and the olive oil is just convenient. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a roux right here in our pan. So I'm getting that butter melted down just for that purpose. You're going to want about a medium-low temperature for this. And that flour that we had, there we go, right down in there. Now, important, when we do a gravy like this, it's important that we cook that flour. You don't want a raw flour flavor off in your gravy, and it will off the flavor of the gravy, it sure will. So when you put your flour in, give it a moment to cook. Now, this is why we don't do it on the meat. You see, all the flour that would be on top of the meat wouldn't be getting cooked. Now, all of the flour is getting cooked liberally all the way across. And I need this to change colors on me. I need it to turn sort of a light tan color. And that means the flour is fully cooked at that point. And it only takes a couple of minutes. This is what they call making a roux. Now, looky here. Look at the color that I've got in my pan now. That took about 3, maybe 4 minutes total cook time. All right, so the flour has been cooked. I have a nice roux here. All I got to do is put my cream in this. Now, that cream, not only is it mixing with that flour, but it's also breaking loose all of that fond on the bottom of the pan, that built up brown. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is just flavor. This is a true blue country gravy right here, and absolutely delicious. If you wanted, just by itself, right there, that's a great country gravy. You could use it by itself. But of course, today we're making sausage gravy, and it deserves a little more respect than that. So now it's starting to thicken enough that as I whisk, I can see streaks of the pan on the bottom. All right, it's a good sign, but it's going to get a little thicker. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a little more. And this is what we do when we're making gravy. You just keep bringing it to a boil, let it thicken, and once it's at the right texture for you, you're done, all right? So there really isn't a measurement for either the flour or the cream other than I started with a little bit less than a quarter of a cup of flour. The amount of cream that I put in there now is maybe about a pint, okay? Which is very similar to when I make cream gravy. But this time, oh, look at that color. Look at all that. That's just beautiful. It's as pretty as it can get. Now this doesn't take but just a moment to sit and cook like this, and it doesn't have to cook at a high boil. And put in just a little more cream. Bring that back to a boil again, and then we go in with our sausage. Now, something that is very important when you're cooking up a gravy like this or any sauce, get a little bit of it on a spoon. You get to see how well it's coating, how thick it is. Then taste it. It gives you another indication of the texture, but also the flavor. Okay? The flavor's good, but it's on the bland side. It needs salt, okay? So I'm gonna put in about a half a teaspoon of salt, and I wanna sprinkle in about, half a teaspoon roughly of seasoned pepper. And very important, use another clean spoon, not a dirty one, clean spoon to taste that again. Okay, now suddenly I'm tasting everything the way it's supposed to be. It's really good. Just what we got, folks. Right there, that is what we call sausage gravy. I've just turned off the heat. We don't need any more heat, because this, at this point, is a fully made sausage gravy. Isn't that beautiful? Does it get better? I don't think so. That's what I'm talking about. Yummy. The quantity of everything that we use today, let's start over here with our gravy. I used 1 pound chub of gravy, 1 pound chub of sausage for our gravy. I used, it was a little bit less than a quarter of a cup of flour there, but more than 1/8 of a cup. On the salt, it's really to taste, but usually about a half a teaspoon to 3/4 of a teaspoon is more than enough for this. The seasoned pepper, about the same way there, about a quarter of a teaspoon to a half a teaspoon. And then on that cream, you're going to be using anywhere up to usually a couple of cups of cream. And it will vary depending on how thick yours is coming out and how thick or thin you want it. So remember, as I've shown you, add more and to thin it out. The biscuits, pretty easy. We got 4 cups of flour, 1½ cup of milk, a half a cup of lard, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon plus a teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon and a half of salt. Very simple. Now let's take a look at our finished product, and oh, I can't wait to dig in. Now look at that beautiful biscuit. Oh, we talk about flaky biscuit. That's it right there, ladies and gentlemen. Now I want more than just that. I want to go heavy on this baby. I want me some sausage and biscuits, and I want it, all together. Here we go. Let's top all that off. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call sausage gravy with biscuits. And boy, that's a good one, let me tell you. Well, I've got it all plated up, ready to go and ready to enjoy. A little fruit cocktail to go with it. That's a nice, easy weeknight meal. What do you think? Oh, yes. Boy, I've been waiting for this. That's a beautiful sausage gravy. That's what a really good sausage gravy should be like. Enjoy yours. I'm going to enjoy mine because that's flat delicious. Thank you so much for watching Texas Cooking Today, and please take a look in that description box. As I mentioned earlier, that's where my website, where the recipes are. They're PDF format, and they're really worth your time and your investment. Please take a look at that. Recipe books coming, folks. I'm working on them. We got to get them together. Thank you for watching. Please thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so. Drop me a comment down below, and I appreciate you watching. Oh yeah, it's dinner time.